Secrecy, deception, and lying are integral parts of Mediterranean culture and valued strategies for maintaining and preserving honor. Western Bible readers are often baffled by this. Take a moment to recall the war between Iraq and Kuwait. Our American news reported, erroneously, that Iraqi soldiers invaded and took babies out of the incubators and threw them onto the floor. Later on, we admitted that this was a lie. Folks, we do this all the time. This was all based on the testimony of one young Kuwaiti girl who testified before a congressional committee that Iraqi soldiers had committed these atrocities. Do you remember the shock 1 year after the Gulf War had ended, when Americans learned that this girl had deceived everyone? Turns out she was a member of the Al-Sabah ruling family of Kuwait, but she successfully hid that from United States officials when she testified falsely about what happened. She completely fabricated the report. It never happened. This Sunday's gospel reading about healed blindness reveals glimpses of secrecy, deception, and lying in Mediterranean culture. John chapter 9, verses 1 through 41. As Jesus passed by, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him,
"Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?"
Jesus answered, "Neither he nor his parents sinned. It is so that the works of God might be made visible through him. We have to do the works of the one who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the dominant society, I am the light of the dominant society." When he had said this, he spat on the ground and made clay with the saliva and smeared the clay on his eyes and said to him, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. So he went and washed and came back able to see. His neighbors and those who had seen him earlier as a beggar said, "Isn't this the one who used to sit and beg?" Some said,
"It is."
But others said,
"No, he looks just like him."
He said, "I am." So they said to him, "How were your eyes opened?" He replied, "A man called Jesus made clay and anointed my eyes and told me, 'Go to Siloam and wash.' So I went there and washed and was able to see." And they said to him, "Where is he?" He said, "I don't know." They brought the one who was once blind to the Pharisees. Now Jesus had made clay and opened his eyes on a Sabbath. So then the Pharisees also asked him how he was able to see. He said to them, "He put clay in my eyes and I washed, and now I can see." So some of the Pharisees said,
"This man is not from God, because he does not keep the Sabbath."
But others said,
"How can a sinful man do such signs?"
And there was a schisma among them. So they said to the blind man again,
"What do you have to say about him, since he opened your eyes?"
He said, "He is a prophet." Now the Judeans did not believe that he had been blind and gained his sight until they summoned the parents of the one who had gained his sight. They asked them,
"Is this your son, whom you say was born blind? How does he now see?"
His parents answered and said, "We know that this is our son, and that he was born blind. We do not know how he sees now, nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask him. He is of age. He can speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Judeans, for the Judeans had already agreed that if anyone acknowledged him as the Christ, he would be expelled from the synagogue. For this reason his parents said, "He is of age. Question him." So a second time they called the man who had been born blind and said to him,
"Give God the praise. We know that this man is a sinner."
He replied, "If he is a sinner, I do not know. One thing I do know is that I was blind, and now I see." So they said to him,
"What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?"
He answered them, "I told you already, and you do not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too?" They ridiculed him and said,
"You are that man's disciple. We are disciples of Moses. We know that God spoke to Moses, but we do not know where this one is from."
The man answered and said to them, "This is what is so amazing. that you do not know where he is from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but if one is devout and does his will, he listens to him. It is unheard of that anyone ever opened the eyes of a person born blind. If this man were not from God, he would not be able to do anything." They answered and said to him,
"You were born totally in sin, and you are trying to teach us?"
Then they threw him out. When Jesus heard that they had thrown him out, he found him and said, "Do you believe into the Son of Man?" He answered and said, "Who is he, sir, that I may believe into him?" Jesus said to him, "You have seen him. The one speaking with you is he." He said, "I do believe, Lord," and he worshipped him. Then Jesus said, "I came into this dominant society for judgment, so that those who do not see might see, and those who do see might become blind." Some of the Pharisees who were with him heard this and said to him,
"Surely we are not also blind, are we?"
Jesus said to them, "If you were blind, you would have no sin. But now you are saying, 'We see,' so your sin remains." While the ancient world certainly knew blindness as a real physical condition, ancient people seemed to consider it no worse than ignorance or a stubborn refusal to understand. The author we call Luke writes this of Jesus: "On many that were blind, he bestowed sight." But the author Luke reports only one specific healing of a physically blind person. On the other hand, Luke Acts reports many instances of people who refused to see or understand, and people who chose to see or understand. There thus seems to be greater interest in the Gospel of Luke in metaphorical blindness rather than physical blindness. In John's report of the man who was blind from birth, both motifs are played out strongly: physical blindness and metaphorical blindness. Since we don't have any x-rays or blood tests or medical records, it's futile to argue about the man's actual physical condition. He and his parents said he had been physically blind. Others doubted and denied it. But the controversy stirred by the man's healing ranges beyond physical blindness into deception and lying. Here's a very fruitful area for reflection. In the Mediterranean cultural world, the world of the Bible, everyone minds everyone else's business. Life is lived in the open, in the public eye, and privacy is practically non-existent. It would seem impossible to live in such a world if one could not at least keep some part of one's personal life hidden from others. This is where secrecy, deception, and lying come into play. Families try to keep family matters hidden or secret within the inner sanctum of the home. Deception and lies are legitimate strategies in the world of the Bible, regularly used to keep information from others. The cultural world of the Bible permits and expects children to try to snoop out the truth by wandering in and out of the adult world, in and out of other people's homes. At the same time, adults carefully instruct their children never to report the inner workings of their own family while snooping on others. After the healing, there is confusion about the man's identity. "It is he," said some, while others countered, "No, but it is someone like him." And the healed man kept insisting, "I am the man." In this world without photo IDs and social security numbers, proving your own personal identity is a real challenge. The Pharisees also seem to accept the healing as a fact, but they are divided in a schisma about Jesus' true identity. Is he a man from God or not? Some hostile Judeans doubt that the healed man ever was blind at all. His parents confirm their son's congenital blindness, but evade the hostile questions about the healing. Ask him. He is old enough to speak for himself. Hostility and enmity toward Jesus are certainly part of the story. At the same time, there are sincere people really struggling to see and understand what exactly has happened or who Jesus really is. The prevalence of secrecy, deception, and lying in this culture explains skepticism as a natural part of Mediterranean day-to-day life, and even make hostility and enmity understandable, if not excusable. The concluding verses 39 through 41 illustrate how masterfully the Johannine Jesus worked within his culture. When needed, he used his powers to heal. In the debates that followed, he drew on his culture's strengths and weaknesses. The fluctuation between physical blindness and metaphorical blindness is common in the gospel traditions. Jesus' point here, as always, is that physical blindness would be understandable and preferable to the willful metaphorical blindness of those who refuse to believe in him. The contemporary popular song captures the idea very well. There are none so blind as those who will not see.